This is your Drive Time News Blast. 30 minutes jam-packed with up-to-the-minute news from a perspective of truth, liberty, and justice every weekday. This is Monica Perez.
And I'm Brad Binkley.
Today's top story, not one quid pro quo, but two quid pro quos.
No.
Yes. Can you believe it?
I'm too stupid to understand Latin.
It's bribery.
Oh, that's what it's called.
Just figured that out. Thank goodness, Nancy Pelosi. She said it's bribery, double bribery. We just got that yesterday from Bill Taylor in that public
bribery.
Double bribery.
They don't cancel each other out?
I don't know. I really want to see some evidence. I'm sure they've got the evidence because, I mean, that's a big accusation. The accusation is that Trump not only threatened Zelensky's aid to the Ukraine contingent on an investigation of the Bidens, but also demanded that at the very least his White House meeting was contingent on, and maybe all of the aid was contingent on Zelensky making a public statement that he was going to investigate the Bidens. So that's the big bombshell. And boy, I cannot wait to see the evidence for that.
Well, they've presented no evidence of that. The bombshell that I took away
What's your bombshell?
Is the one major takeaway that I'm hearing repeated on CNN over and over again, and we're going to continue hearing this for the next week because it was a teaser. We had a 6-hour testimony from two people, and all we got was like a 30-second teaser that's going to be used to keep us on the hook for 1 week until next Wednesday.
Yeah.
And that is that there was an overheard phone call, the case of the overheard phone call.
Not another one.
Yeah, there's another phone call, and this phone call was Bill Taylor testified that his staffer came to him and said that he overheard a phone call between Sondland, Ambassador Sondland, and Trump. So I guess it was either on speaker or Trump was just talking so loud because they were in a restaurant, and he overheard the phone call, so he knew it was Trump. However, that's not even the relevant part of the story. They just include that part of the story to make it seem as though Trump said this. Then what happened after the phone call is that the staffer said to Sondland, and this is all coming from Taylor's testimony, the big takeaway, said, "So what's going on with the Ukraine investigation?" And Sondland responded, according to this staffer, unnamed, said that Trump cares a lot more about the Bidens than he does the Ukraine investigation. So that's going to be the big takeaway, and they framed it in the news in a way to confuse the audience, to make it seem as though the staffer overheard Trump actually saying it, as opposed to
because Trump came out and said, "This is the first I've heard of that phone call." Trump said that in his Turkey press conference.
Well, that's going to be the ambiguous
art of ambiguity
aspect.
in this one.
The entire week, and I've already started to hear it today, we're going to be hearing these debates about, well, now that it's been proven, it's no longer hearsay because Sondland was on the phone with Trump, and he said that Trump cared more about Ukraine. And
did Sondland say that's true? Did he corroborate that?
He hasn't corroborated. We have to wait
he's
till
a
next
flopper,
Wednesday.
Though.
We have
he
to wait
flip-flops.
till next
I
Wednesday
see.
to get the
of
stunning
course.
conclusion. And what it's going to be leading up to that, it's going to be, is Sondland going to admit to what we know is true, or is he going to commit perjury?
Or is he going to lie?
Is he going to perjure himself? And that's going to be the story.
But he's probably going to do both.
What he's probably going to say is that at the most he's going to say that was his opinion and Trump didn't say it, so that's going to further muddy the waters, or he's going to say it didn't happen at all.
Or that he didn't know what it was until he heard
it's
Taylor
a different context.
Say that they overheard it.
So the biggest takeaway was something that Bill Taylor staffer told him he overheard and that he asked Sondland, who we're going to hear from next week. It's all a television show. And
yes. Oh my gosh, what will the cliffhanger be before Thanksgiving?
I think it will probably be that...
The vote? No.
No, what's his name? John Bolton. We got John Bolton. I think that's going to be the
coming
big closer.
Up after the break, after the Thanksgiving break, they'll get Bolton?
I think so.
Or maybe they'll say a surprise witness.
And Bolton might be the surprise witness.
Yeah, maybe they
or
won't.
Hillary Clinton walks out.
Jeez.
So another interesting thing.
Or Eric Charmella.
That's another great one. That would be fantastic, but I don't know that they'll want to roll him out.
He might come out and say, I'm not the whistleblower.
There you go. Yeah. That would be – I'm wondering
That
if
would
that's
be
going to
fun.
happen because
They
it
should
seems like
hire
a
us
setup.
to write for them.
They definitely have writers, script
Yes.
writers, and one of them we talked about yesterday.
Well, what's
Adam
funny is
Schiff.
you see them reading them.
Yeah.
You see them reading the scripts. Oh, yeah, Adam Schiff is a writer.
Speaking of scripts, Devin Nunes opened his statement yesterday at the hearing by saying something that I said all of last week. And he said, the witnesses deemed suitable for television by Democrats were put through a closed-door audition process.
No freaking way.
He must be
That
listening to the show.
That's exactly what you said. I'm actually wondering if people are listening to the show.
Devin, if you're listening, please send support.
Become a Patreon.
Yeah.
Give us a shout out once in a while.
So Adam Schiff, I told you yesterday.
So we all know. I don't know if people follow the news as closely as we do. So Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, is the Democrat that Trump hates, and Nunes
Yes.
is like the pro-Trump Republican who gets a lot of flack for being such.
Yeah, exactly.
I
And
think. I'm not even sure half the time.
I'm not either half the time. What I do know, though, is that Schiff is the, wait for it, he's the new Robert Mueller. This is why
Schiff?
we're hearing about Adam Schiff being a screenwriter. This is why I saw articles all yesterday and these little segments yesterday across all liberal media about Meet Adam Schiff, the reluctant leader who up until recently stayed out of the spotlight despite governing over Hollywood, but now has stepped into the spotlight when our nation depends on it the most.
Wow, so he's doing the thankless task of becoming a superstar in Holly, D.C.?
And they did all these featurettes
Hollington.
about him. Yeah, here's what I found out about Schiff, and a lot of this stuff is to make him relatable. It's creating the myth of Schiff, kind of like they did of Robert Mueller when Robert Mueller was coming out. And the myth of Schiff involves, we already talked about his screenwriting, found that out. Found out yesterday that he's a vegan.
He's a vegan?
He's a vegan. Found out that he runs marathons and triathlons, apparently, and I think they presented that because he looks like a 59-year-old Meek Gerber baby, so I think they were trying to present him as athletic, as somebody who could fight against Trump.
If you can tell by looking at a person, he neither looks like a vegan nor a marathon
No, he does
runner
not.
to me.
Yeah. And he does stand-up comedy, dabbles in stand-up comedy,
What?
which he does at these Democratic conventions every year. I'm going to look
Hold
for some
on.
audio of this. Yeah.
Democrats have comedy? Like, if there are no standards, how do you surprise people? Like, if everything, like, all values are a moving target, so, like, how do you make a joke? I mean, it's probably just, Trump's orange. Oh, yes, I hate him too. Let's laugh about how much we hate.
It said in this article that, unlike Trump, Schiff goes for not the guttural laughter, but more wit, which I think was a different way of saying that he's not funny.
Actually funny.
Yeah.
So people say, oh, that's funny, instead of actually laughing.
Yeah, they snap at it. They're trying to combat the idea that he's boring and meek and mild-mannered by saying, oh, he's
Right.
athletic and he's funny and he's actually smart and witty and he's about to take on
Well,
Trump.
what's the end game with this guy? I know that he is going to be the anti-hero or the hero, depending on which side you're on. Like, he's
Yeah.
countering. I expected shit to be the center of attention.
Yeah,
And is
you're
that
right.
all it is? Just a little character development?
It's a character development, and
So
I'm
far.
wondering what role he's going to play moving
Yeah, it's
forward
going
because
to.
they're spending a lot of time on it. And something interesting about him, and I want you to look this up, is that Adam Schiff looks almost identical to President Charles Logan on 24 season 5. If you type in Adam
Really?
Schiff,
And
Charles
it's
Logan,
not separated at birth?
identical, and this guy who plays that character in 24,
Yeah.
this character is described perfectly as being
No.
devious, deceptive, and wait for it, shifty.
That is fantastic.
Every character this guy
But that
plays.
was so long ago. How long ago was that?
24
Has
was
to be
like
a long time.
2001 to 2014.
Yeah, I think it's...
But every character this guy plays is exactly like that. It's a shifty villain. And Adam Schiff looks and feels
just has to be a
exactly like
coincidence.
this guy. I know.
That just has to be a coincidence.
But it's interesting. No,
But I'm wondering
nevertheless.
if... So Stacey Abrams is going to be the VP to... Pete, can I call Mayor Pete Buttigieg? I think it's cute.
Well, you're
No?
towing a line there. I think you call him whatever you want.
I just think his name is like fun. That's what his name is spelled like, and it's such a cute, for the no.
I mean, I might
I might
his
get in
husband
trouble
calls
for
him.
that. Is he married?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I didn't know he was married.
Yeah. He makes out with his husband at rallies and stuff. It's a thing.
So like that's what his husband calls him. Yeah, that's my booty gig.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
Cute. That's cute. I like it. So Stacey Abrams will be his running mate, right, for a while. His dominatrix.
Yeah, she'll carry him around to different rallies and stuff.
As Snowden would say, like a towel,
there you go.
Around her neck.
Yeah.
So she'll do that. So maybe she'll be too busy to lead the opposition. So maybe Shifty Schiff will do it for her.
Possibly.
Could be.
Yeah.
So should I tell you, is there any more on the impeachment? Because I have some backstory on actual Ukraine that I didn't get to yesterday, but I think it's going to light fire. So I don't need to spend a lot of time on it, but I got to hit it. What else you got?
The only other thing I would say about this impeachment is, as we know, it's designed for public opinion. Die Hard 3, the movie, Die Hard with a Vengeance. There's a scene in Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Weren't you in that?
No, I was in a fake Die Hard 5 trailer that they thought was real, and I'll put the link
got like
in the
a
thing.
million
you can watch
views.
It. Yeah.
That was fantastic.
And in the movie, John McClane, the lead police officer, he is sent on like a wild goose chase to try and solve these riddles in order to defuse bombs around the city. So it's like all the resources of the city are going to all these bombs everywhere.
On a scavenger hunt.
Yeah, and they pass by this storefront being looted. And John McClane's like, what's going on? He stops this kid, and he goes, hey, kid, what are you doing? And the kid goes, all the cops are chasing after these bombs. It's Christmas around here. And then it dawned on John McClane that while all the resources are focused on this rat race or this trick, is that they're being looted behind the scenes about something else. So my question, I think you can probably answer it as well. What is being looted right now while we're focusing so hard on the impeachment hearings? What rights and amendments?
The Second Amendment.
There you go.
Damn. It is. You should save that because I got a lot to say about that. I really do. Today, of all days, because yesterday, right, that's exactly what was happening. Yesterday, it was heck to get anything on what Barr came out with. But I did find it. I tracked it down, and on freaking cue today in the Wall Street Journal is this study about mass shootings. Is like a tiny little inset. It's not even an article. Oh, Barr launches gun grab, and then there's a shooting in California, high school shooting. Like it's all kind of dovetailing. So let me hit my Ukraine stuff, and then I'll tell you a little bit more about the Barr.
Okay.
The segment, but you're absolutely right. This whole thing, all the impeachment stuff is absolutely in the main ring. And what's really happening is off to the sides. And there's a few things that are being we're being distracted away from the impeachment stuff, towards the impeachment stuff, away from actual stuff with like war in Russia, a war with Russia. And particularly the deep corruption in Ukraine. So here are the two things that I kind of just like glossed over yesterday because I was like literally too excited to like collect my thoughts on it because it was so nuts. It was in the New York Times. This Kolomoisky said, if you don't give me my money, my bank, my Privat bank, if IMF doesn't start sending aid back to Ukraine, I'm just going to go to Russia and I'm going to get my boy Zelensky to make a deal with Russia. He didn't say that, obviously, but that's the takeaway for sure. So RT, Russia Today, put an article out there that said Kolomoisky is going to come back to us, that kind of thing. And I was like, really? These guys must be their own people. Like Kolomoisky, oligarchs are like above it all, But then I went to the original New York Times article and I saw that what he was saying was, if you don't give me my money, if you guys don't figure this out, we're going to Russia. So it makes us feel like he's making it crystal clear to everybody that if we don't escalate in Ukraine, it goes hand in hand with what I said yesterday about what Taylor and Schiff kind of set up, that back and forth, like this affects our way of life. And we have a right to aggress on other people if what they do has an effect on us, which is not correct. But Kolomoisky is underlining that by saying, if you guys don't, as goes Ukraine, so goes the world. And I'm leading the charge. But one little item in there that I found to be stunning was that the IMF stopped giving money to Ukraine. In September, the IMF had a deal the IMF deal with Ukraine was up, and they could not reach a new agreement because this issue with Privat Bank. So I've said this before, I'll make it quick. Kolomoisky owned Privat Bank. IMF money went through that to some fishy loans. Then Privat Bank became insolvent, and Ukraine had to bail it out to the tune of billions of dollars. Kolomoisky, who's the one who made it insolvent and took a lot of money out of there, had the audacity to go back to Zelensky, to now Zelensky's government, and Zelensky is his boy because he put him on TV and rose him to fame. He's going back to that government and he's saying, I want the bank back. I want, now that it's solvent, it's my bank and you took it illegally. Well, back in like May or June, the Ukrainian courts started agreeing with that, started saying it was illegal to nationalize that bank. So at that time, it was getting crazy. Like, where is the aid going to end up? If Kolomoisky gets the private bank back, then all this aid is, I mean, who knows? That's his whole shtick. If he's in the saddle, it could keep going that way. And that's just when we didn't send over our aid payment. And the IMF in September is still, it's like, until this Privat Bank thing is straightened out, we're not sending it, which is amazing because they're not doing it out of the goodness of their, integrity. I'm sure they're doing it because they're sending the money over there for the Bidens, not for the Kolomoiskys. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. That was just a joke, but I don't know the answer. So that was the one thing that was in the New York Times yesterday, and also in the Wall Street Journal yesterday. There's a huge article about, I can't say huge anymore.
You sound like you say it like Trump says it.
I know.
But you always said it like that, though.
I think so. Yeah, I think so because I'm from New York. So, like we say, whatever. Houston. I always say I lived in Houston. It's like Houston. So this article is about, in the Wall Street Journal, is about ANTAC, this anti-corruption activist thing, and their partner, a new law enforcement agency established inside Ukraine that worked hand in hand with ANTAC. All of this stuff is funded, organized, trained, all of that stuff through the FBI and George Soros. And they're calling the shots. George Kent and Yovanovitch were giving orders to the prosecutor, Lutsenko. And the first prosecutor, Shokin, was pushed out because he wasn't doing the bidding of ANTAC. But Kent and... So
Yovanovitch,
the ambassador. Yeah, the Czech
connected
ambassador.
to Soros?
I don't know, but I'll tell you who's researching it. I'll answer that question in a way. But Glenn Beck sent out shortly after this article came out, so I'm sure he was doing it in parallel, maybe felt like he had to pull the trigger because they're whitewashing it. He came out, I just read a 26-tweet thread from him. I think it was Glenn Beck. Somebody sent it to me, where he's going through all this stuff that I was like, someone needs to investigate this anti-corruption thing. And so the whitewash is coming out, and the Wall Street Journal is like, why? This stuff must be coming to a head. It must be. And in the beginning of the article, it's like Giuliani calls ANTAC a Soros front. Haha. By the end of the article in the Wall Street Journal, it says ANTAC funded by Soros. It is funded by Soros, but, and the U.S. taxpayer. So then in another place in the article. Totally true.
Even though Colbert and others make jokes, the Soros funded, just like you said, every night in order to discredit that idea, it's true.
It's absolutely true. It's not even up to debate. So there's one line in this Wall Street Journal article that was unbelievable. It says, there's underlined so damn much that I can't find it now.
It's like a full page highlight.
It talks about how they use anti-corruption. Oh, here it goes. Every Ukrainian administration since the country gained independence from the Soviet Union in 1991 has pronounced itself an enemy of corruption. So they all say they're against corruption. But it has often been a pretext for politicians and businessmen to remove rivals or strip their assets. Bingo.
That's what you said in the beginning.
That's what I said from the beginning. I was like, there's got to be a reason they wanted to chase out their own damn guy.
Yeah.
And they're laughing about it here. There's other places, other references in here. It says, so the U.S. Embassy had sought to shield the Antac NGO from prosecution over allegedly stolen grant money. I read you that George Kent letter last week saying Kent made a reference to this. I went back and I saw he said, yeah, we're not worried about those guys stealing our money. Don't worry about it. And the Ukrainian prosecutor's like, what? You don't want to know? You know? So this thing, I recommend this article in the Wall Street Journal, even though it is a whitewash, because it highlights all these facts that I connect the dots by connecting the dots. They connect the dots by saying, no connection, no connection, no connection. Ha ha, what a joke. Oh, and another thing was like, this is the last thing I'll tell you. And, it says in a frosty meeting, Marie Yovanovitch, the U.S. ambassador, pressed Mr. Lutsenko to lay off the U.S. allies. He grabbed a pen and sarcastically asked for the names of people she didn't want him to prosecute, according to a person present. Lutsenko's story is, I grabbed a pen and wrote down the people she was telling me not to prosecute. And he came up with the list, and people were like, that's not the list. There's misspellings in it. And he's like, well, she didn't write it down. I wrote it down.
There's misspellings in it. That's how they, so
that's how they debunked it. But he was the one who wrote it down. So the Wall Street Journal says some person in the meeting, which I don't even believe there was anybody in the meeting. She's not doing that in front of anybody. Sarcastic. Why insert the word sarcastic? Sarcastically, he did something, but he didn't mean it. He meant the opposite.
And he says he meant it.
Yes. I think he retracted after, like, the guy's been in jail before. Like, he's been a political prisoner before.
That's similar.
He was arrested for, like, drunkenness in Germany, and he said that it was part of an orchestrated smear campaign. Like, this guy, Lutsenko, is the guy that Biden said was rock solid to Haas. He, like, literally pats Haas on the arm. He's like, he's solid, solid.
Yeah.
That's this guy.
This sounds similar to the Trump thing where they're judging what's in the person's mind, the intent.
Yes, totally. And if you can twist that up. So my upshot is just, please, I hope Glenn Beck is really digging into this stuff. Now, he left out the IMF aid hold thing. I don't think he knows about that because I just noticed it yesterday, and I can't find any articles at all discussing why Ukraine aid was held back in June. But that's right when like in May, I think that surprising Privat Bank judgment came down, and there was a $500 billion almost lawsuit filed in Delaware against Kolomoisky, and the FBI launched an investigation. So it would completely make sense if that's why we were withholding aid in Ukraine. So Glenn Beck, please put that on your to-do list, because I have dinner to make. I can't do it right now.
I hope so. I hope they investigate it.
Me too.
We've both been saying all along, investigate the Bidens. Please, investigate the corruption.
It'll all come out. It doesn't matter. They can do the Soros thing. They can do the Kolomoisky thing. They can do whatever they want. I would stay away from Kolomoisky, personally. He's got a literal shark tank in his office, literally.
Yeah.
That's the guy who drops crab meat into the shark tank when he's having meetings, just in case you suggest investigating.
Would you like to see me feed my shark?
Is that Russian? Can you do a good Russian?
Yeah, I can do a hacky Russian.
You got to work on it because it's going to be important.
Okay, I'll make sure to hone that in. So I talked earlier this week about this deep fake writing stuff, this technology that's coming out, and I wanted to follow up on a story that's similar. Artificial intelligence has written fake Trump speeches in a new study, and 60% of the people in the speeches, or 60% of the people who were asked to evaluate whether they were given two stories, and they would say which one is Trump, which one is Robo-Trump. 60% of the time, they got it wrong. So
wow,
that's scary because they were prompted to choose. Most people aren't prompted in everyday news. So
right, they're not even thinking about it.
Exactly. So as long as it fits their framework that they already have and they already believe, then they're not going to question it. But when you're prompted to choose and only 60% of the people, and this is over a study of 1,000 people, get it wrong, then the technology is most definitely advancing. And this article that talks about these participants says, given that Robo-Trump could crank out literally millions to billions of words per day, you can imagine how this technology could be used to manipulate opinion. Bots leveraging this technology could spam blogs and social media posts, etc. The volume of realistically generated Trump texts style will enable massive disinformation campaigns of staggering volume and reach.
This friend of the show, who gives me some good information, especially about psych issues, was explaining to me over and over again that, and I just was not getting into my head, that if you hear something, even if you know it's false, if you hear it again, you think it's true. So they could actually target individuals with personalized misinformation, false text from Trump or anybody else, and that individual will have it in their brains regardless of whether it's true or not. Yeah. And that's why it's important that it's AI and bots, because the volume to personalize this stuff, it's too great for human beings to do. You have to just kind of lump people to get in their birds of a feather. But if you can create the bird of a feather and target it and really hone it without actually having to use manpower, then you can do some massive disinformation. And this kind of technology would never have emerged organically in a free economy, because there's no reason for it.
Yeah, and what you just said there is what's going to be happening with this story that we talked about at the beginning of the overheard phone call and the, quote, admission by Sondland that Trump cares more about the Bidens in Ukraine, which personally I don't think is a problem if there's corruption, but they're going to repeat this all week, and it's become fact in their audience's mind before we hear from Sondland.
Yes, there is fake news like that. That's just wrong. Oh, that was wrong. Like, remember that whole BuzzFeed thing?
Yep.
That whole BuzzFeed thing where it was genuinely not true, and CNN picked it up, and the first time I read it, I was like, that doesn't look real to me.
Yeah.
So my craziness when I heard Taylor saying that about the calls and everything yesterday, I was like, that's not true. I just don't believe it. But I'm going to not believe even stuff that is true. Like, you're going to get even me. Like, I'm super cynical. Well, there's an app for that.
Right. Yeah, exactly. There you go.
I wanted to summarize, though, or give you the highlights from the Barr thing. Can we go back to that?
Yeah, go for it.
Just wanted to. So Barr put out the Project Guardian yesterday, and there's just a couple of really important things to look at. First of all, Jeff Sessions tried to do the identical thing 2 years ago, and he didn't make it. So a lot of work has been done over the past 2 years to get people ripe for this, especially since they're rolling it out when we're not paying attention. So what he's doing is he's using federal laws. He says in his remarks, Barr said that the state laws just weren't coming around on hardcore prosecution for people who violate gun control laws. So the feds... So that probably is a legislative problem at the state level. So the feds are going to law enforcement and DAs at the state level. They've done it before when he was AG before, and they want to bring it back because it was rolled back, I guess, under Obama. Maybe this is why Barr is here in the first place, to do this exact thing. So he's saying you want to put away people for a really long time if they illegally possess guns. It says violent felons who illegally possess guns. But the fact is, it's not about the violent felonies. It's about the gun possession. It's called Project Trigger Lock. He's reviving Project Trigger Lock. I think Project Exile was another one. You can look into these things if you want to. And my problem is that it's a 10th Amendment issue. Policing should be at the state level. If your states don't want these gun laws and your state, the people you're paying are going up and engaging with the federal laws. There's another thing that was very problematic. It says 100,000 rejections and denials under our background check system happen every year. We're going to be pursuing people who have lied on their applications. So if you apply and you get rejected, that's going to go into their database and they're going to pursue you. So boy, is that a chilling effect. If they accuse you of lying, what if your lie is something minor? Did you ever smoke cigarettes? What if... Yeah. Right? And they're going to pursue the people who have failed a background check. They're going to pursue those people.
That leaves the door wide open when they are evaluating what is an incorrect application.
Yes, and if there's a mental illness detected, if that's why they're denied, and that subset of the 100,000 is 6,000 people with mental illness, we will consult with our state and local colleagues to determine whether there is an available mental health response and try to ensure that this doesn't fall through the cracks simply because we don't have an immediate law enforcement basis to arrest the person. So they're going to take action against people who fail background checks, even if there's no law enforcement basis to arrest them.
The looting of our rights.
Yeah. I mean, what if you have PTSD, OCD, ADHD? Are these all reasons that you're going to actually, it's crazy. And then he wraps up by saying there is more coming. And
with the way that kids and young people are being diagnosed at such a high rate, nobody's going to be allowed to do anything. Yes,
right.
Screen-induced psychosis.
The adolescent psych industry is booming. Oh, and one more thing. Look out for Project Cash, CACHE. Google is going into the banking business, but they're going to partner with financial companies so that you're not going to know that your Citibank account is a Google bank account. They're doing it to gather information.
No way. They're getting front organizations.
So this impeachment thing, like, look at the B-list news, because that's where all the crazy stuff is happening.
Yeah, and I would like to say that today is National Loosen Up and Lighten Up Day, whatever the history of that holiday is, but seems like something good for America right now. So
hey, this should be the theme music for Loosen Up.
Yeah, kick back, listen to some JJ Boogie.
Yes, thanks, JJ.
Loosen up and lighten up.
Yeah.
And you can find your Drive Time News Blast every weekday afternoon at 4 p.m. on thepropreport.com or your favorite podcasting platform with the Propaganda Report podcast feed. We will talk to you tomorrow.